have something in my eye today. Hello, BookTube. I'm Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. And today I'm going to do not quite a mid-year, but a bit of a where I am in my reading goals for the year of 2019. So far, where am I and what do I need to do next? And this is important for me right now because it is August. It's the end of August. And so we just have 4 months left in the year, and if I'm going to meet some of these goals and I'm going to hit some of the books that I've had on my TBR shelves, I want to make sure I'm intentional about what I'm going to read in the next few months. I didn't have a sort of a set TBR for August, and I find that I'm challenged by that. If I set a TBR, sometimes I don't want to read what I've got on the TBR. And if I don't, sometimes I just read whatever kind of comes to mind. But I have tried this month to be diligent about getting some of these books that are on my stacks and on my TBR lists read so that I can finish out the year pretty strong. I don't want to say, oh, I'm going to read all these books and then not get to them. So let's start with the books I chose for my top 9 in 2019. So of course there were 9 of those. And I have read 4 of them so far. So I have 5 left to go. That's not great. Now I am reading one right now, which is the one that I listed on the top. This is my bullet journal, and this is my top 9 in 2019. And yeah, so I'm reading Caraval right now by Stephanie Garber. I'm combination reading the ebook and listening to the audiobook. Both were available to me on Overdrive through my library. So I feel like I will finish that. I'll probably finish that by the end of August because I'm about to go on a trip, and so I'll be driving for a good long bit, and I feel like I can finish both the e or the audio version of that on that trip to where we're going. The second on my list was Transcription by Kate Atkinson. I did read that and finish it and liked it very much. The third on my list was The Clockmaker's Daughter by Kate Morton. I did finish that. I also do have something in my eye. I finished Beartown by Frederick Bachman. And number 5, Jane Unlimited, I have yet to read. Number 6, The Passage by Justin Cronin, I have yet to finish, although I have some plans on when that could happen. The Stand by Stephen King is number 7. Both The Passage and The Stand are pretty hefty books. Number 8, The Silent Patient, which was one of my most anticipated reads by Alex Michaelides. I did finish that. Was it Alex Michaelides? Yes. It was. I finished that earlier in the year. And then We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter, which is also on my summer reads list, purposefully because I realized that I needed to get onto this. So that is a historical fiction, and I should be finished with that by the fall equinox, right around my birthday. Then I set aside a nonfiction book list as well that I wanted to get to this year, and how am I doing on that? So I put 6 books on that list for me to read by the end of the year, and I have finished 2. The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson, which was quite an epic tome. And Wait Till Next Year by Doris Kearns Goodwin. And I actually just finished this past week. I did a combination of listen and read this copy while I was staying with my daughter-in-law and my grandgirls. So I still have left on this stack The Chicago Cubs, which is by Rich Cohen. I want to finish that before the summer's end for sure. Cork Dork by Bianca Bosker, about a sommelier. I may take that one with me on vacation. The Road to Camelot, Inside JFK's 5-Year Campaign by Thomas Oliphant and Chris Wilkie. Had this for a bit. I think I got it last year. This is a signed copy by the author, as I recall. And, or the authors, yes, it is. And yeah, I really want to read that. Maybe November is a good time to read that because it's election time, October, November. And A Mission from God, A Memoir and Challenge for America by James Meredith. Those were my nonprofit stacks. So I have 4 of those 6 left to go. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about my summer reading TBR and how I've done on that list of books. The first book I put on that TBR was The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I have not read it. I do think this is a good one to bring with me on a trip, and I think it's a young adult fantasy about a girl whose grandmother wrote dark fairy tales, and I think a dark fairy tale begins to unfold for the main character in this book, who is Alice. I'm in the mood for that, certainly. Next on my summer TBR list was this Nora Roberts trilogy. I had gotten, well, at least one of these was on the summer TBR. I had gotten all 3 of these matching copies of this trilogy. So we have the weirdest weather today. It is cloudy and then it's not cloudy, and so Dance Upon the Air was book 1. I finished it. Heaven and Earth is book 2. I finished it. I am on book 3, Face of Fire. I did keep going. I'm ready to be done with this trilogy. I'm about 1/3 of the way into book 3. I liked book 1 so far the best. Book 2 was, but I finished it. We'll see how this goes, but I'm feeling pretty good about that, and I expect to finish that by the end of the summer, which for me, again, if you've forgotten, is the start of the fall equinox. The Return Journey by May Binchy is on my summer read list. I have begun. This is a book of short stories, so I've probably read 3 of these short stories so far, and I anticipate that I will complete that by the end of the summer. So many books in here now. Waking Up in Paris by Sonia Choquette, a memoir about her time moving to Paris right at the end of her marriage and the beginning of the terrorist attacks there in that city. Did finish that, read that as a part of the reading rush, so I'm happy to say that one is complete. Wait Till Next Year by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I mentioned earlier that was also added to my summer reads because it's about baseball primarily. Finished it. The Curse of the Cubs, which I just showed you, I have not completed, so I'd like to finish that. And Neighborly by Ellie Minago, I did complete. That was on ebook for me on my Kindle, and I finished that as well. So I have finished, if you count the trilogies, I have finished 5 of my summer reading stack, and I have 1, 2, 3 left to go. Not bad for the summer reading stack. So I did create a top 10 mystery readers I want to read more of, and I didn't put a time limit on those, I don't think, but I haven't done as well with that list, let's say. I have read a couple of mysteries, but I guess I haven't really been focused on mysteries this year as much as I thought I would be. So the first on that list was The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, which is the pen name for J.K. Rowling. Have not read it. The second on that list was Faithful Unto Death by Carolyn Graham. Haven't read it. The third on that list was The Shadow of Death by James Runcie, which is one of the Grantchester mysteries. Haven't read it. Fourth on that list was Sid Moor's Strange Magic. Nope. Fifth on that list, Elizabeth Peters, The Camelot Capers. Nope. Sixth on that list, Carlos Ruiz Zafón, Shadow of the Wind. Nope. Seventh on that list, Daphne du Maurier, The House on the Strand. Nope. Eighth on that list was a Laura Lippman. I did just pick one up, but nope. She has a new one out too that I'd really like to take a look at. It's very in demand on my library book list. Ninth on that list was Anthony Horowitz, Magpie Murders. Yes, I read that. I read it earlier in the year when we were traveling, and I was going to dance competitions and loved it. Loved it. And then 10th on the list was Louise Penny's The Hangman, which is, I think, her first in her series. Never read any Louise Penny. I still have not read any Louise Penny. So the top 10 mystery writers I want to read, whether it was in 2019 or not, did not get read. Now, my overarching reading goals for 2019, which are also in my bullet journal, created those right there. And that's actually my first page of books that I've read, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I wanted to read a total of 40 books. That was my yearly goal. I've already exceeded that goal, and I've upped that goal to 50. Once I get to 50 books, which will probably be by the end of this week or next, I probably won't up it. I'll just let it go higher, but that'll help inform my 2020 reading goal, which obviously I'm reading more than I ever have before. Another goal for me was to read horror and mysteries, which are genres that I really appreciate, and I haven't been reading as many of, and still really haven't. I've read a couple of horror novels this year, Josh Malerman, Bird Box, and The Cabin at the End of the World, which I didn't love. So I think that's the only horror that I remember reading so far this year. I could be wrong. I've read about 10 mysteries this year, so that is, not maybe the mystery writers I intended to read, but I read quite a few mysteries. Some classics, like The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. I would consider the Once Upon a River as a bit of a mystery. It was a mystery about a girl's death, so I'm counting that. Although it is a little bit of it could fall into a couple of different genres. I finished The Clockmaker's Daughter, which could also be considered a ghost story, so that could be considered a little bit of paranormal horror as well as mystery. I read a lot of psychological thrillers. So if you consider those mystery, I read I Know Who You Are, I See You. The Turn of the Key could go either way into paranormal or mystery. The Child by Fiona Barton. The Postman Always Rings Twice, which is a classic film noir kind of mystery. So I feel like and The Tuscan Child. I didn't love The Tuscan Child, but I did finish it. So I've read a lot of mysteries, fewer horror. Fantasy and sci-fi. I read Little Darlings, which I would consider a bit of fantasy, fantasy / psychological thriller. So that was neat. Echo was a bit of fantasy, a bit of fantasy, I would say. I did read Nevermore, which was definitely solidly fantasy. Yeah. And I would say that that's all the fantasy that I have read. So I'd like to get a little bit more of that in. And again, I'll have a couple this summer that I can add to that list. Read 5 books from my 100 books bucket list. No, I don't think I've read a single one. If you're wondering what my 100 book bucket list is, it's a poster that you can scratch off the books that you read, and I haven't even scratched off all the ones that I've read because I feel like I'm going to reread some of them.